Welcome to Real Shame, a show where we two fellas talk about our list of movie blind spots, movies that we haven't seen, that we're finally watching, and we're finally discussing amongst ourselves in front of a camera, and throwing it up on YouTube and some podcast thing that I don't know the title.
You don't have any idea what it is.
I don't have any idea what it is, but I know you don't have to look at us if you don't want to. My name's Andy.
For some people, that's a benefit.
It is. It's a benefit for me. I don't have to look in the mirror.
I'm Adam.
And this week, we're tackling a pair of films that I have not seen, movies from my list of shame. So to tell us about Monday's episode, what movie we're going to talk about, I'm going to throw it over to Adam.
All right. A young Australian reporter tries to navigate political turmoil in Indonesia during the rule of President, Sukarno, with the help of a diminutive photographer in the year of living dangerously.
Hey, who's this?
CIA.
Nah, he's an embassy office boy. Look at him.
You're both wrong. He's the new ABS man.
Now, how did our diminutive friend know that?
Little twit knows everything.
Guy Hamilton, right?
Right.
Billy Kwan. I did a lot of film work for Potter.
What do you do?
How do you do? I felt sorry for you. Dumped in your first posting without contacts. Adrift. Hoping to bluff your way through. Wally O'Sullivan, Sydney Herald.
Read your stuff. Mere travels nearby.
Kevin Condon, photojournal for theatre. And Pete Curtis, Washington Post.
Pleasant flight? Yeah, it was all right.
This your first overseas post?
Yes, it is, yeah. Pity about Potter taking off.
Yeah.
It can be hard here without contact. Yeah, well, I'll survive.
I keep on wanting to call this a year of living dangerously, but it's the year of living dangerously.
Different article.
The only year. Not one of many years. It's just the only year.
This is the only year of living dangerously.
This movie came out in 1982. It is directed by Paul Weir. We've done one Paul Weir movie before, which was
Peter Weir.
Oh, sorry. Yeah, Peter Weir. Why am I saying Paul Weir? Peter Weir. We've done one Peter Weir movie before, and that was Picnic at Hanging Rock.
Mm-hmm.
I feel like he's also pretty prolific, but not talked about a whole lot. But we'll get into his filmography in just a second. The movie's also written by David Williamson and Peter Weir. I'll get it right this time. It's based off a novel by an Australian novelist, Christopher John Coke is his name, and the novel came out in 1978 of the same name. So Weir, he's done movies like we said, Picnic at Hanging Rock. He did Master Commander on the Far Side of the World, which was really good. He did a movie that I know you're not a big fan of, Dead Poets Society. He did The Truman Show and done a whole bunch of other stuff. He's kind of dabbled, it feels like, in a bunch of different genres throughout his whole career.
Yeah, definitely.
And I feel like he had all of his movies are pretty solid and pretty well received. Williamson did Gallipoli, which actually Peter Weir also directed.
Yep.
Which I have not seen. Traveling North, which I've never heard of, and Don's Party. I don't know if those are more Australian affair or not, but those were the ones that kind of were shown like as known as on IMDb.
Yeah, I'm only familiar with Gallipoli out of those three.
The Year Living Dangerously stars Mel Gibson as Guy Hamilton. We have Linda Hunt as Billy Kwan, Sigourney Weaver as Jill Bryant, Michael Murphy as Peter Curtis. We have Paul, Sanaka as Kevin Condon, and Bill Kerr as Colonel Henderson. Like Andy said, this is a movie he hasn't seen. It's actually a movie I haven't seen either, but it looked interesting. It looked cool, and I wanted to throw it on the list for us to watch and talk about. So before I pass it over to you, how do you feel generally about Peter Weir's filmography?
I would say the majority of his stuff I'm a big fan of.
Okay.
I like it. Dead Poet Society, as you mentioned, is maybe one, excluding Year of Living Dangerously. I'll get into what I feel about it. But pretend I've never seen Year of Living Dangerously. All his other movies that I have seen, which I think is all except for The Way Back now.
Yeah.
I think I've seen all the rest of his films.
And I believe I've seen The Way Back.
I like them all pretty much except Dead Poet Society. That's the only one. And some of them I'm a big fan of, like Picnic at Hanging Rock. I'm a big fan of Gallipoli. Fearless is a movie he did with Jeff Bridges, which I really like.
Mosquito Coast, which I haven't seen.
Coast,
it looks
Harrison
interesting.
Ford, yeah. So he really has done a lot of solid solid films. So I would say overall, I'm a big fan of his work. Does The Year of Living Dangerously fall into the like 98 percentile or the 2% with Dead Poets Society?
That is my question.
That's the burning question.
Along with, and before we get into that,
Yes.
What'd you know about Year Living Dangerously before, and then you can say what pile it falls into.
I mean, I knew I didn't really know a lot about and I still don't know a lot about the actual stuff that was going on in Indonesia at that time. Now, I have seen The Act of Killing, which is a documentary that was made about the guys that basically, after this uprising against Sukarno, and then when Suharto took over, I get them. It's like, which one came first, Sukarno or Suharto? Because they're very, very close.
Well, you're doing better than me. I can't even read my own notes.
But after Sukarno was replaced by Suharto, basically the mobs went on just killing sprees and killed a ton of people, and that's what the Act of Killing documentary is about, which is a very interesting documentary.
Is that a recent one?
It's about 10 years old now.
Okay.
But, yeah.
And is that also done by the cave dude who has a...
The cave dude?
Yeah, he has he was the bad guy in Jack Reacher.
I don't know. I'm honestly, I couldn't tell you who did that documentary.
Because he does a lot of documentaries.
Oh, okay.
I can't think of his name. It begins with an H.
Don't know. Can't help you there.
Okay. I'll find it.
So I basically all I knew about what was going on in Indonesia was what they talk about in that documentary, The Act of Killing. And it's been 10 years or so since I've seen it, so I didn't remember all that. I did know
Werner Herzog was the guy I was thinking of.
No, I don't think he did The Act of Killing.
Sorry.
I did know Mel Gibson was in it. I did know Peter Weir directed it. I forgot Sigourney Weaver was in it.
Yeah, she's young in this.
Like I didn't remember, but I did know that Linda Hunt was in it, and Linda Hunt plays a man in this film, and won an Academy Award. I knew all those things, but I didn't really know. Yeah, I didn't really know, much about the story or much about the history. So the burning question: does this fall into the I like Peter Weir film, or I don't like it, which basically just is Dead Poets Society at this point.
Dead Poets Society is dead to you.
Dead Poets Society is dead to me, but Dead Poets Society has a friend in the do not like pile.
Oh, interesting.
Because I didn't really like The Year of Living Dangerously. Now, do I hate it like I hate Dead Poets Society? No.
Okay.
I did not hate this film by any stretch of the imagination, but it didn't really work overall for me. I felt like it's like, are we making a political drama or are we making a love story? They couldn't really decide which. And I'm not saying you can't do both, but I felt like I didn't really feel like I got much out of what was going on still in Indonesia. I mean, yes, they talk about Sukarno, and yes, they want to get an interview with him or do this, that, and the other thing. But I feel like the only person who's really, kind of involved with what's going, like really involved. I mean, they're all reporting on it, yes. But the only person who was really, really involved was Billy Kwan, the Linda Hunt character, because he. It's weird. How do I refer to this? I don't know.
That character.
Yeah, that character. Billy thinks Sukarno's a genius, and I feel like I don't get much of a sense of what the others think. Maybe they're just neutral. But then, kind of midway through, maybe an hour into the movie, Sigourney Weaver shows up. Like, she's not in the movie for a while.
Is it that long?
It felt like that long. Maybe not that long. 45 minutes. But it's at least half an hour. I feel like before she goes.
Because she gets introduced because she's basically like the arm candy. It seems like she's the attache's assistant or whatever.
Bill Kerr's character, Colonel Henderson,
and she's like swimming the pool. Yeah,
and she has a terrible British accent, which comes and goes, but mostly goes. Right? I mean, she's supposed to be British in the film, and she does occasionally say something like in a British accent, but it's like one word out of like 500.
She's like aluminium.
Yeah,
like,
and then she just goes back to speaking like Sigourney Weaver. But she shows up, and of course, Mel Gibson likes her, and he wants to get with her, and then it turns into this like heated love story for a minute. And I actually like that part of the movie the best. Yeah, because I like the is it Vangelis? How do you say that guy's name? The Blade Runner composer, Vangelis. I should have looked it up. Yeah, it's Vangelis or Vangelis or something. They used some music of his, in it, which is anachronistic, but it's intentionally so. I really like that song that they used. But I dug that part of the movie, and then they don't get into an argument, but basically she tells him information that he uses as a story that he really shouldn't use.
Yeah.
And so then she's just like, no, I don't want anything to do with you.
Yeah, it's kind of like privileged information she shares, and like he gets another source to verify it, but because he like reports it, they basically know that she kind of gave him the privileged information, and he kind of like betrayed her trust.
Right.
But I feel like, well, I'll let you go, and I'll remind me of that, and I'll kind of jump in on that.
So I mean, I understand that, but then it goes back to kind of being this political drama for the remainder of the film.
Yeah.
But to me, again, I didn't really get a sense, and I don't expect a history lesson, but I really just didn't get a sense of what was going on at the time. And maybe that to Peter Weir or to, Christopher John Koch or whatever, the author, maybe that wasn't important. Maybe it's just all about time and place and love story kind of thing. But it just wasn't, it never melded well for me. It never meshed together well for me. I didn't think it was a terrible film, but I wish that it would have concentrated either more on kind of the love story or more on just being like a political drama, because mixing the two, you can do such a thing, but this movie to me didn't do it very well, honestly.
Gotcha.
So what did you think? You also have not seen You're Living Dangerously.
I have not. I kind of have the same issues with the movie that you do, but I'm actually more favorable for the movie.
Yeah.
So the first half of the movie, I really enjoyed it. I was really liking it, and I thought it was really interesting. I'm with you. I think the love story is far more interesting than anything else that happens in the movie.
Yeah.
And in fact, for me, the movie gets messy and kind of loses its way a little bit when they start focusing more on Billy, like especially and what happens to him and him turning against Sukarno and all that kind of stuff, right? So whenever like he gets really upset at Sukarno, and he's like he's a liar and all this kind of stuff, then leads to him ultimately to Billy's death and hanging the banner and all that kind of stuff. That's when the movie kind of lost me, and it wasn't as interesting. I think the most interesting stuff was Mel Gibson and Sigourney Weaver falling in love and him kind of being out here and this stuff like that. So for me, the first half of the movie was kind of interesting, and I really liked their burgeoning love story and them doing things together and all that kind of stuff. And even the kind of falling out but trying to get back together kind of thing. And then all of a sudden this movie kind of feels like to me it took a turn. And it's like, no, we really got to focus on the political stuff and focus on Billy and all that stuff.
We're here for this purpose.
Yeah, actually, and for me that just kind of it didn't work for me. And also like Billy turning on Sukarno feel like it came out of nowhere.
So I was just about to say that.
Yeah. So it just kind of like I was just like, you get a couple scenes of like him helping out like a lady that lives nearby, like he's kind of adopted her, I think is what they say in the movie, and all that kind of stuff. And I think you get a few dialogue about him supporting Sukarno, but all of a sudden he's like at this party, he's like, Sukarno's a fuck, or like, it's just like just hates him, and it's like, whoa, when this happened?
Yeah, it's an extreme change.
Then all of a sudden it accelerates too.
At the beginning of the film, when Billy first meets Mel Gibson's character Guy, they go walking kind of through some slums area, and they have a discussion about, do you think, helping these people, giving them $5, and Mel Gibson's like, Guy Hamilton's like, it's just a drop in the bucket, so why bother? But Billy has a different stance, and so then you see that reflected in how he helps the mother and her kid, and the kid ends up dying. So it's basically the kid ended up dying because he's sick or whatever, and he doesn't have adequate medical care. And he also sees people cutting open bags of rice and just kind of eating the dry rice. And that's enough to make him immediately flip into a 180 and go, I'm going to put this banner out, it's the Sukarno feature people, and give my life for it, basically. So it's not developed well enough for me. It's too abrupt.
And because there's so much other interesting things going on in the movie that I like. Like, I like the fact that, like there's like little interactions that I think are so cool. Like Mel Gibson wanting to give the guy that works for him extra money because his dad needs it or whatever like that.
His dad's being shaken down by some like gangsters or something.
And it's like, and he doesn't want to take it, but he's just like, take it. It's just like, I'm going to get more money of this anyways. And you get stuff like that. And then like you get the part where they're like, they basically take Mel Gibson at the end and like kind of put him in a safe house. They take him to that place with the pool and everything to get him out of harm's way. And he basically finds out like, they're part of the resistance.
PKI,
yeah, and they're gonna, and they're like this. You're safer here, and all that kind of stuff is like, way more interesting, like that kind of stuff. And I think the movie would have been better served to focus more on Mel Gibson than that kind of turn with Billy and all that kind of stuff. And then, the stuff that happens with Mel Gibson where he like gets the what's it called, the retina, he gets a detached retina and all that kind of stuff, like that's freaky. I mean,
busted in the face.
So with you, I think the beginning part of this movie carries a lot of my warmth and like of the movie pretty far. I do think like the Billy stuff is just doesn't really serve it very well. It's interesting, excuse me, that Linda Hunt ended up winning an Oscar for it, because like, I mean, it's okay, but it's
I think she's good, but it's just the character arc doesn't ring true.
I liked it better when it's like they're like, Billy collects these people, right? And then Billy felt betrayed because Billy felt like he got Mel Gibson and Sigourney Weaver together. And then since Mel Gibson kind of betrayed Sigourney Weaver, Billy felt betrayed by that too. Like, I think that would have been better, like a better insular story than, him having to deal with, all the politicalness and all the area and stuff like that,
Yeah.
But so that to me, that's where the movie's strength lie, or with that stuff.
Yeah. I mean, I kind of wish they would have just focused on either, political history lesson kind of film, dramatic kind of thing, and not really had much of a love story, or let's just do a love story, basically. Yeah. Let's just have this movie where two people find each other amongst all this political unrest in Indonesia, and that's kind of what the movie's about. But it was like a little bit of this and a little bit of that, and to me, it didn't add up.
Yeah, I heard
to enough. I mean, the part that I was most engaged with in this film is kind of that middle section where he and Sigourney Weaver start getting it on.
Sorry, love fest.
start their little love fest. There's two other things that I did want to mention though. I do like Michael Murphy. So he's the guy who plays the other journalist who's basically an asshole. He's very smarmy. And the reason I like it is because of that. Most of the movies I feel like I've seen Michael Murphy in, and I've seen plenty, he's not that kind of character.
Oh, that's
so it's cool him playing against Ty. Because he's just an asshole jerk in this film.
It feels very like true.
Yeah, like he really is that way.
Yeah.
But no, most of the movies that you see him in, he's just this cool, upstanding guy. So to see him like this, like the whole time, every time he was on screen, he's just kind of pushing, Mel Gibson's buttons. I was like, that's interesting for Michael Murphy. I mean, I'm sure he's played other roles like this, but I haven't seen them, or I forgot about them. And the other guy, Colonel Henderson, the actor, Bill Kerr, he's in Gallipoli. He worked with Peter Weir in Gallipoli before this, and is also in another movie called Vigil, which I can't remember the director's name, but it's the guy who he's a New Zealand director. He eventually went on to do What Dreams May Come with Robin Williams. But the movie that Bill Kerr's in that he did called Vigil, I think is phenomenal. It came out maybe a year or two after Year of Living Dangerously. It's a New Zealand film, but it's fantastic.
Very cool.
Visually, so great. So great. But yeah, I just mentioned those two things. But yeah, I mean, just overall, this is a miss for me, unfortunately.
Gotcha.
A miss for Peter Weir. But I don't hate this movie like I hate Dead Poet Society. So it's just I'm
a little bit more favorable on it. A couple of trivia that I pulled. This had a $6 million budget, and at the time was the most expensive and ambitious Australian film ever undertaken. I hope that's true. The novel was loosely inspired by the experiences of Coach's brother, Philip Coach, an Australian reporter living and working in Indonesia in the mid 60s or 80s? It's 80s. 60s. Okay, there you go. This one says much of the English dialogue in the film is Filipino, not Javanese. The Philippines, they speak Tagalog, so I don't know how true that is, but apparently they speak Tagalog in the movie.
I don't know any of those languages, and so I couldn't tell you.
Yeah. They didn't film. There's like apparently death threats and all that kind of stuff, so they couldn't really film in Indonesia, and they used a lot of Filipino actors in this movie, so it makes sense to me that they would speak Tagalog.
Oh, they got death threats because they felt like they were misportraying.
It was something against. They thought this movie was against Islamic kind of religion.
Oh, okay.
And stuff like that, which I'm sure ties into the uprising and all that kind of stuff going on in Indonesia at the time.
I see.
And the last thing, like we said earlier, this won an Oscar for Linda Hunt for Best Supporting Actress in a Best Supporting Role.
Yeah.
This is the first time an actress playing someone of the opposite gender won an Academy Award and stuff like that. So that's kind of interesting.
Is it the only time, I wonder?
So they list them. So the trivia lists some other things. They list what's her face? $1 Million Baby. And
Oh, Hilary Swank.
Hilary
okay.
Swank, but she doesn't really play a male in the movie. She
Yeah.
plays more of a I don't know. I've never seen the movie, so I don't know the correct terminology and stuff like that.
Yeah.
And then there was one other movie they mentioned, but I don't think they mentioned.
Okay.
I think this is the first time like a woman's played a main character that's won.
Yeah, and it's funny. I mean, that was the only like nomination this movie got, right? I mean, and that was it. And
Yeah.
they're like they just singled out. And again, I don't think Linda Hunt is bad. I think she's good in this film. I just didn't like the movie overall. But I mean, and like we talked about, not necessarily where her character goes.
Yeah.
But I mean, I don't know who else was nominated that year in that category. I guess I should have looked at that to see if I really agreed with that or not. But I thought she was fine. She was good.
All right.
Well, interesting casting choice.
We know where
to
we
say the
fall
least.
on it. Sorry about that. I jumped
No.
on it.
I just kept on talking. I keep on blathering. On.
It was apparently Peter Weir said that he had trouble finding an actor for the role and just knew Linda Hunt could nail it, so went with her.
Interesting.
Yeah. So that's where we fall on Living Dangerously. I'm a little bit more favorable for it. I feel it's a little messy, but I enjoyed it overall. And Andy is not his favorite Peter Weir film.
No.
But not as bad as Dead Post Society.
No, not nowhere near.
So that's where we are. We're the critics on this one.
Pretty favorable. It's 88% fresh on Rotten Tomatoes, 77% audience. It got 2 thumbs up. And so, as you mentioned, this movie did come out in 1982, I believe, in Australia, and it may have had like a limited release in the States, but it's considered more of a 1983 film in America. Okay. So it was on Siskel's 10 Best list at number 6 for 1983.
Oh, wow.
And it's on Ebert's 10 Best list at number 3 of 1983. Both of them, and I think we mentioned this before, both of them picked The Right Stuff as the best film of 1983, in case you were curious.
I still haven't seen.
Leonard Maltin gives it 3 stars.
All right. And does this one have a DVD release or anything?
Oh, thank you for pointing that out. It does not have a North American Blu-ray release, and I'm not sure if it has a release anywhere else. I didn't bother to look. However, I know it does not have a Region A Blu-ray release, which is weird to me. I feel like it should, but
yeah,
it doesn't.
I think this is a good movie. I feel like I would watch it again.
Yeah. All right.
So. All right, that was the year of Living Dangerously.
Not a year.
Not a year.
The year.
The only year.
The year of Living Dangerously. I do like. I will say I didn't say this before. I love that title.
Yeah.
I think the title's really cool. Fortunately, the movie is not as good.
The movie lived too dangerously. So on these Monday episodes, we always like to talk about what we've been watching. I'm going to toss it over to Andy. Andy, anything you want to talk about that you've been watching lately?
I feel like I've watched everything. No, because we're coming off of the holidays and had some time off and everything, and I didn't travel anywhere. I just sat around and watched movies and stuff like that. So I had to really narrow this down, but I thought I would mention, not for any particular reason, I just kind of was like, yeah, that looks good. I subscribed to Paramount Plus.
Yep.
Which I mentioned one of the weeks in recent memory that I watched Jerry and Marge Go Large off of Paramount Plus. Those movies. I saw that they had the movie Orphan First Kill, which is a prequel to a horror movie called Orphan, which came out I think in 2009.
Yes.
And so I thought, well, I'll watch Orphan, and then I'll watch Orphan First Kill, the prequel. I guess I could have done it the other way around, but I think I've seen Orphan. I believe I have, but I didn't remember anything about it. So I watched it again. It's not really that good, to be honest with you, and it goes on far longer than it should. I think it's pretty close to 2 hours, and it's not good for, as I always say, for like comedies and horror films to be that long. There's some exceptions, but I think that's way too long usually for those two types of films. But Orphan's way too long, so ultimately I think that really, really sinks it. It's also just pretty silly.
Yeah.
So I don't really like Orphan that much. Orphan First Kill, I hadn't really heard anything about it. Like, I didn't know if people considered it to be better or worse than the first film. I think the first film has a lot more fans than me. I mean, I think a lot of people actually like that. But
Apparently enough to make a sequel.
I know. Well, a sequel 13 years later.
Yeah.
Well, I wanted to watch Orphan First Kill also because they use the same girl who's in Orphan.
Yeah.
Although now she's grown up. At the time when she made Orphan, she was like 11 or something, and now she's like 20 something.
Yeah, does it work?
But she's still playing a young girl. I think it does work.
Okay.
Because they use different camera angles and things to make her look small. That the makeup and everything. I don't know if they did any kind of de-aging stuff for her, but I mean she's in her 20s, so she's still very youthful looking anyway, right? And so as long as they do the hair right and whatever, make her look like she did when she was in the first film. Yeah, I actually think it works.
She stands on her knees.
Yeah. Oh, you could definitely tell. It was like the Lord of the Rings, right? You could definitely tell where they were doing things that to make it look. Or there was a stand-in, right?
Yeah,
they didn't. You saw her from the back. You knew it was like a little kid.
They have
right?
like Deep Roy standing in for her.
Right. Yeah. But I gotta say, it gets super silly in the climax and at the end. But I thought Orphan First Kill is actually better than Orphan.
Okay.
Because it's basically the story of something that they mentioned in the first film.
Okay.
And so you have this expectation of exactly how it's going to go. And I feel like they did enough interesting things with it that I was like, oh, that's pretty cool. Like, I actually did like it. And I like it better than the first film, which I don't really care for. But Orphan First Kill, I did think like the last 20 minutes or so was like really corny, like really, really stupid. But overall, and it's only about 90 minutes.
Okay.
So overall, the brevity of it was cool, and I think they did just enough with it that I thought was pretty cool. I actually liked it. It's not an amazing horror film. I mean, it's not even near. It can't touch any of the classics, obviously, or anything like that. Nowhere close. But just for a watchable little film, and especially if you've seen Orphan, you might as well watch Orphan First Kill. I actually thought it wasn't that bad. That I have had issues with my Sonos speakers going in and out sometimes, right?
Are we putting them on blast today?
I'm putting them on a blast. Well, because when they work, they're great. But a lot of times you'll look at your Sonos app and it's got question marks where your speakers should be. And you're like, how come I don't have speakers behind me blaring anymore? So, and it takes a long time to set those back up because you got to, do it's just, it's a whole ordeal. So again, Sonos, great when it works. Not so great when they just mysteriously drop out all of a sudden. But I finally took the time, again, since I was off, to get all the speakers working. Not like I have like 50 speakers or anything like that, but I have surround sound.
It's 40.
I took the time to get the surround sound working again, so I thought I want to watch a big, loud action movie. I don't care if it's dumb, just something where I can hear the explosions behind me and in front of me.
Independence Day.
Subwoofer and everything. Yeah, no, I've never watched that again. But I thought, I want to watch something, so I wanted to watch something recent.
Yeah.
And so I was looking at some of the more recent action films that come out, and I almost watched Ambulance, the Michael Bay, but I skipped it in favor of Bullet Train.
I watched that too.
All right. So, this will be a perfect segue because this is the last film that I'm talking about. I thought it was fun for a little while, but it just goes on and on and on. And that bullet train ain't stopping anytime soon.
It's not.
It goes on and on.
Not even when it goes off the tracks.
And on and on and on and on. And ultimately, it sunk the movie for me. I was like, this movie does not know when to quit. Like, it's fun. If they would have cut 30 or 40 minutes out of it and tightened it up some, I probably would have enjoyed it, overall. But as it stood, I thought it was kind of fun. The different characters that all kind of intersect, and this person knows this person from before and all that stuff. It's fun, but it not knowing when to quit just to me killed that film.
I think the director's David Leitch who did it. He was one of the directing duos that did the John Wick movie. He also did Deadpool 2.
Okay. I mean, I like the John Wick movies, and I like Deadpool 2, but Bullet Train was not a good one for me.
Okay.
All right, so that perfect little segue. Throw it over to you.
Actually, I enjoyed Bullet Train a whole lot. I think it's David Leitch's best movie he's directed by himself. I think it's far better than Deadpool 2. I do agree with you. in a little bit at the end, it goes on and on a little
Not
bit.
a little bit.
It's like 15 or 20 minutes too long.
Okay.
But
to me much longer.
It did not sink the movie for me at all. It was a lot of fun. I had like bottom of the barrel expectations, right?
So did I, but
the action.
But 3 hours later, no, not really, but 2 hours later,
Yeah.
I was like, "Geez, come on!"
I thought the action was a lot of fun. I thought it was interesting. It was colorful. It was loud. It was pop. I liked how all the characters intermingled, had these different backstories, and as the movie goes on, you're realizing more and more kind of what's going on and how more and more they kind of join together and intertwine and all that kind of stuff. And Kirby and I watched it, and we had a blast watching it. We were just
I'm wet blanket over
Yeah,
here.
yeah.
I was like, it's too long.
So I agree. It does. It could probably lose about 20 minutes, but I think it's
double that maybe.
I think it's very fun. So yeah, I like the Bullet Train. We watched that.
Right.
And I didn't know you watched it. So that was cool. The other movie there's two more movies I'm gonna call out that I watched. The other one was a Christmas movie. I was talking about David Leitch and Deadpool 2. Ryan Reynolds came out with a Christmas musical with Will Ferrell on Apple Plus that I watched. I was on the fence on if I really wanted to watch it. I kind of was worried it was going to be bad, and just didn't seem like a musical with Will Ferrell and Ryan Reynolds sound very interesting. Like it sounded like it was going to be a train wreck more than anything, and also Ryan Reynolds hasn't been choosing very interesting roles for himself lately and stuff like that. He's kind of fallen into, like, I hear people refer to it as like every character now he plays is Deadpool, right? They're all meta comedy.
I mean, I felt like that his entire career.
Yeah.
I mean, I would say.
Amityville, he's pretty.
Once he starts getting possessed, he's obviously not really jokey. But before he gets possessed, he's Van Wilder. I mean, to me, he's like Van Wilder, Deadpool, his whole career. That's what he does. I mean, he's a funny guy, and he's witty. So I mean, I get it, but it's he doesn't. I haven't seen Buried and things like that, but I feel like he always plays this wisecracking guy, right? Always.
Yeah, I just feel like it was a little bit more mellower than it's been since Deadpool. Maybe that's just me. So I was kind of on the fence. Really, I had to really pitch it to Kirby to watch because she was not on board at all and didn't sound interesting. But finally, being Christmas and all, we decided to sit down and watch it. This is how long ago we watched Spirited. And actually, it's kind of a lot of fun. It's kind of cute and sweet. And he doesn't play as meta of a person, so he's not as annoying in it as he is.
Yeah.
And it's the same music people that did Benji that did The Greatest Showman. So I would say that if you like The Greatest Showman, and we both, Kirby and I, like The Greatest Showman, we like the music in The Greatest Showman, I would say check out Spirited. It's actually kind of fun and kind of sweet and not a lot better than I was expecting watching it and stuff like that. Like it might be a new Christmas movie tradition for me because I enjoyed watching it and I like music. How many Christmas musicals are there? I mean, there's a bunch, but not many that I watch regularly.
Yeah.
So I liked Spirited a lot.
Will Ferrell I need a break from, and Ryan Reynolds I need a break from. So when I saw that they were in a movie together, I was like, I'm definitely not watching this. Not for a long time.
I feel like they're not. And maybe you can talk to Kirby about it and see if she got the same way. She got the same feeling that I got, but I feel like they're not playing at like the level 10, level 13 humor that they normally play at. But like to me, they come off as more mellow versions of themselves.
Will Ferrell, he's like Ryan Reynolds. He's always the same kind of guy, right? So I just feel like they're both gonna be that in this movie. Like,
no, because I mean, I agree. I am a person that really doesn't care for Will Ferrell movies at all. Like I never got into the Step Brothers thing. I never really got into like the Frank the Tank, whatever movie that was in with Vince Vaughn. Old school. Like those all, I never liked them really.
So yeah, that was before I got sick of Will Ferrell. Actually, I liked Old School.
I didn't like him in SNL. I didn't like him in Jay and Silent Bob Strike Back. Like I'm not a biggest fan of Will Ferrell, but there are some movies that I do like him in, which is, what was the one where the author was narrating his life? You know what I'm
That's
saying?
Stranger Than Fiction.
Stranger
or
Than
something.
Fiction. Yeah, I thought he was good there, and he was mellow there.
Yeah, well, he's finally doing a dramatic role in that film, right?
So I think sometimes he does it. And I also had talked about I liked Eurovision, which is unusual for me to like Will Ferrell in the movie, but I feel like he's kind of.
But it's also a musical.
Yeah, it's also musical. So, anyways, I'll have you ask Kirby if you feel like they're mellower. I feel like they're not playing that much into their sticks in this movie as they normally do, but maybe that's just me. I liked it a lot. I really did. And the music's fun, and it does what I think a good musical should do, which is have good songs, have listenable, enjoyable, singable songs. The last thing I want to call out is the new Avatar movie's out, Avatar Way of Water, or The Way of Water.
Weight of Water.
And I kind of wanted to watch that in theaters. So I was like, well, it's been, since 2009 since I watched the first Avatar.
Yeah. So
we might as well sit down and watch the first Avatar. And I can say now that I'm not excited to see the sequel after watching the first movie. The first movie, like the action's cool, and it's James Cameron, right? So he can direct a movie and stuff like that. But for me, what it feels very silly. And I feel like the dialogue is very like, it's just very, I don't want to say stilted, but it seems very juvenile, like the way people speak and the way people act. It doesn't feel like it's written by, it doesn't feel well written. Like the situations and the way people speak to each other and all that kind of stuff just feels very like silly to me. And it just like, I don't know. For me, it just kind of like got me off the whole Avatar train and stuff like that. I don't remember. I think I remember kind of being positive towards Avatar when I saw it originally, and then kind of cooling on it over the years. And this rewatch, it did nothing for me. I couldn't get excited about it at all.
Does James Cameron write his own scripts? Write his own screenplays?
Yeah, he does like scriptments, what he writes, which are basically like shortened versions of scripts. They don't have like full dialogue. But he wrote Aliens, he wrote Terminator 2.
Titanic.
He might have wrote Titanic.
Because I was gonna say I've never really paid much attention to whether or not he writes the dialogue.
I think he did write.
But like Titanic to me is the same way, right? It's this spectacle. Avatar is a spectacle, and I haven't seen Avatar since 2010 or something like that. Yeah, I haven't seen Avatar in like 12 years, but I liked it when I saw it originally. I don't know how I feel about it now, but I know movies like Titanic. Titanic is just a spectacle to me. The whole Jack and Rose thing is meaningless and not good to me. It's the just all the other characters on the ship and the ship breaking apart and everything else. That's the most interesting thing about that. So the dialogue is just flat and uninteresting as far as Titanic goes. And I mean, I'm not going to say that about Terminator 2, but I'm saying Terminator 2, even if you don't think the dialogue's great,
it's interesting action.
The action and the special effects and all that stuff just make it shine, right?
Yeah.
So that it can be forgiven if it has stilted dialogue in a movie like that. But Titanic is a drama. Avatar's not a drama, so maybe you could forgive that as well. But I could see that kind of being a theme. If he writes all his own kind of stuff, then he's not a great writer, probably.
Yeah, I think you're hitting on something that's very true there. I think if its writing is to serve an action movie like we have with Aliens, Terminator 2, it doesn't really rely that much on the dialogue, so it can kind of be juvenile.
And he's got cool stuff in there like Bill Paxton going, "Game over, man."
Yeah, so it can be kind of juvenile. It can be kind of like, not good prose. I don't know if prose is the right word. Not very well written, right?
Yeah.
But when you rely on it more for like an emotional movie like Titanic, or if you rely it like Avatar is, I don't say Avatar is not really an action movie. There's an action set piece in the end, but a lot of the movie is not actiony. It's more characters talking. Yeah. Jake Sully trying to understand the tribe, trying to infiltrate, and then learning to like them and all this kind of stuff. Like there's some like scenes and moments, but most of the movie, I would say 80% of the movie is not action. And I feel like his dialogue doesn't suit it very well. I think in the new movies he has co-writers, so they might be better. But like I said, this movie made me go, okay, I'll just wait for it to come out on DVD or whatever. I'm not looking forward to it at all. So
Right.
yeah, so it's interesting. That's my hot take on Avatar. It's not great.
All right.
And I hear like the second one is a lot like the first one, so I'm like, okay, I'm not ready to sign up for that again.
Yeah.
You know?
Well, there's even more in the can, right? Like
Yeah.
we have several.
Well, there's at least going to be
He went all in.
Yeah,
on
he did.
Avatar.
There's like 4 proposed Avatar sequels.
That's crazy.
And then he filmed 2 and 3 basically at the same time. So at the very least, 3 should come out unless 2 does absolutely horrible, which I think it's doing pretty well in the box office right now.
I'm sure.
And then
In part 3, are they going to go back to the Old West?
No, they should.
So
Apparently, 2 deals with the Avatar creatures. I can't even think what they're called. The Na'vi and the water. And then part 3 is going to deal with them fire Na'vi.
Oh.
I just read an article on that
Earth,
today.
Wind, and Fire.
Yeah, so we're going to do all the Captain Planet stuff.
Okay.
Heart, Earth,
Okay.
Wind, Fire, Air. Yeah, all that stuff.
All right.
All right. So that's everything you probably didn't want to know about Avatar more, and what we've been watching.
Everything you've been watching.
Yep.
All right. So on today's episode, we talked about a movie where you've got characters in a country with political unrest, and they kind of have like a little love story and whatnot. So what did you decide to pair with this movie?
I mean, that sounds like a unique premise, right? There can possibly be a movie that's very similar to that.
No way.
No, so I was trying to find movies that have the same kind of vibe to this, the same kind of theme, about reporters in another country, maybe potentially a love story. One of them was like The Killing Fields that came up. There's a bunch of movies around the same time that kind of came out around that have a similar story and stuff like that. And the one I settled on is Under Fire. It's a movie I've never heard of before I found it on the list, but it starred, Gene Hackman. It looked interesting, and I figured why not? It had decent reviews, so I decided to pair Under Fire with The Year of Living Dangerously.
All right.
Have you heard of it before?
I have.
Okay.
Yes, but not seen it. Never
Well,
seen
there
it
you
before.
go.
Yeah.
All right, so stay tuned. I was going to say next week. It's not next week. Stay tuned Wednesday when we figure out what is Under Fire and not. Please like, subscribe, share, do all that social media stuff. We really do appreciate it. And it really does help the show out, and it really does help the show out. And stay tuned Wednesday when we talk about Under Fire, guys. We appreciate it. Have a good one. Bye.